What is up, you guys? It's Aisling. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing a postpartum video. I've really wanted to film this video for you guys because I watched a couple of these videos whilst I was pregnant, and they really helped to kind of reassure me or kind of prepare me for after I gave birth. Now, I know it's very difficult to prepare you for after you give birth because every single person is different. Every single woman's body reacts differently, and how you feel emotionally is obviously going to differ from one person to the other. But I'm just talking about my experience, how I've been getting on, what postpartum life has been like for me, what having a new baby has been like. I obviously want to do a separate video all on the body. I am going to talk about it briefly here today, but I feel like it needs a video all on itself, as well as my updates on my body and just kind of how my body is getting on. I do feel like it is such an important part, and there's things that go on in your body that nobody talks about, and even in postpartum videos that I watched, people didn't mention all of these things. I also do want to film my realistic what you need in the hospital bag. I know I did a hospital bag, but I want to kind of say what I actually used. I also want to talk a little bit about my postpartum essentials and what I think you guys need, but that is not what today's video is about. Today's video is kind of like a whole, an update, and just talking about how I'm feeling. I'm almost 8 weeks postpartum now, so I just want to give you a little bit of a lowdown on what is going on with my body and how I've been feeling. So if you guys are interested in my postpartum update, then definitely stay tuned, keep on watching. Okay, so I took note of everything that I wanted to talk about today. So I want to talk about like your mood, hormones, feelings, your body, mental health, relationships, also the bleeding as well, because I do feel like that's quite important and other things that we don't discuss. First thing I'm going to actually talk about is hormones and just your emotions, really, because I feel like this is super important. This is definitely not something that's linear. It's not something that from day one you're going to feel the worst and then it gets better as time goes on. I felt like it's been up and down. For me personally, it's been a roller coaster, and I really feel like that is the best way of describing postpartum feelings and hormones, as a roller coaster of emotions. Like one day you're feeling great, one day you're feeling like crap, some days you feel like you're doing a really good job, some days like you feel like you're failing, and it's just not, it's not straight and it's not easy. I did have a little bit of a cry in the hospital. Nothing really radical. I cried when I breastfed him and he got sick, because I just felt like, oh my god, my breast milk is making him sick. But it was just that he had fed too much and I had moved him too much after he'd fed, and I didn't know what was going on. But that made me so emotional. I cried so much, and I also cried when I couldn't breastfeed him because he just wouldn't latch. So the nurse came over and helped me, and you know, it was fine. But those irrational crying sessions, they don't really go away. I've had, I think, about 2 or 3 of them since he's been born, and except for the ones in the hospital, and crying is totally and completely and utterly normal. Every woman experiences it. I dare you to find a woman who didn't cry after giving birth. I think the hospital ones were definitely the most irrational crying. Some people might say, no, that's completely normal to be upset, like that you think your breast milk is making your baby sick. But to me, that feeling in that moment was like I got the worst news ever. But just be aware that you may cry for no reason, and that is fine. When I was doing antenatal class, the midwife described it as baby blues, and I would say that's probably what it is. It's not like a long term feeling, it just is very short term, and it doesn't last very long. It didn't feel like for me. Crying over things that weren't important. I felt like I couldn't do anything right for my baby, and the Sunday I brought him home, I had like a breakdown. I came home on the Friday and I had him on the Thursday. By that Sunday I had a breakdown that night where I snapped to Paddy. I was crying, I was upset, I couldn't settle Noah. I felt like I was doing the worst job possible. I just felt like a failure, and I just felt like I couldn't deal with having a baby. And why on earth had I been given the responsibility of a little human? Because I just wasn't capable of it. But again, those feelings go away. You don't feel like that forever. It's just a very short period of time, and like I said, baby blues are normal. I felt overwhelmed and not wanting visitors, and definitely feeling of mom guilt in the early stages. I feel that mom guilt quite a lot, and I will describe it as feeling like nobody can do the job that you do as well as you do it, but also you don't want the responsibility of somebody else taking care of your baby. For me, this wasn't a clingy attachment thing. It's not like nobody touch my baby. It was more so like, he's my baby, I gave birth to him, I have to take care of him. I look at my mum and be like, you had your babies and you looked after them, and Paddy's mum, I'm like, you had your babies and you looked after them, and now it's your break away from taking care of children. This is my child and I should be looking after him. And it's such a strange feeling. I've never like known that I would feel that way, and people have described mom guilt before and I didn't really understand what it was, obviously, because I wasn't a mother, but now I know exactly what it feels like. But my family and Paddy's family want to help, and when they do say, look, give me him, he's not settling, let me just take him for a few minutes, it really does help. I went and got my nails done for the first time when Noah was 3 weeks, and I remember, like, I knew I was going to be gone for an hour. Mum was like, you're fine, and Noah was asleep, and when I went out to get my nails done, I was like, in my own head, I wish the girl would hurry up. And it's so strange because I've gone to my nail girl for so many years and I've just chilled and relaxed getting my nails done. She takes about 45 minutes and it's really like relaxing. But when I went that day, I was like, oh my God, I need to rush back. I need to get home to him. Like, Mum's looking after him. What if he wakes up? What if this happens? What if that happens? And then when I got home, he was still asleep. I was like, oh dear Lord. But in my head, I couldn't even enjoy getting my nails done. It's definitely gotten a bit better. And I definitely feel a little bit more like, yeah, you can take them off me, no bother. But mum guilt is a real thing. And those feelings don't go away, honestly. They really don't. And I've heard it even from my mum. They never, ever, ever, ever go away. But they just get a little bit easier. And you just allow more people to kind of help. The baby blues thing, just getting back to those feelings and those emotions. My midwife did mention in my antenatal classes that if the feeling of that lasts longer than 3 weeks, that you should actually go and see your doctor, that perhaps you have postpartum depression and that you may need to speak to someone. So if those feelings that you felt initially, like the baby blues, continue on for longer than 3 weeks, that it's no longer considered baby blues and you may need a little bit of help, like maybe speaking to someone professionally. I had like a really bad day on Friday as well. Just Noah wouldn't settle, just got really upset and I cried. Do you know what? After crying, I just felt so much better. And then Paddy stepped in and he helped and my mum helped on Saturday. And I just felt so much better after, you know, crying and opening up to people. So I will say that when you are feeling like that, do open up to people. I know there is that thing inside your head, you know, you need to be able to do everything and you don't want to open up to people because you don't want them to see you as a failure. And that's what kind of I felt all the time, like people are going to look at me as I'm a failure. I can't look after my own baby because I'm getting upset like this. So those feelings like come and go. Most days I feel really good. Like today I'm sitting down filming, Paddy's taking care of Noah. It's not on my mind to rush off and go and tend to him while I'm filming this because I know he's with his dad. So those feelings do go away. They don't taper off completely. Like I am still aware, like I want to get back to taking care of him, but I am just going to take this time and film and just do my little bit of work. I will also say that hormones aren't everything, so don't blame everything on hormones, as in like, oh, I'm really feeling very sad for the last few weeks, it must be my hormones, because sometimes it could be something more, and just kind of take that into account. So the next thing I want to talk about is my body. I felt kind of two different ways for my body. During pregnancy, I felt like, oh my God, my body's amazing. All these things it's doing, it's so fantastic. It's growing a baby. It's making life. It's keeping my baby safe. It looks fantastic. I feel great. I know I don't have that much energy, but I'm just loving everything that I'm putting into my body and nourishing myself. So I had these great emotions during pregnancy. As soon as I gave birth, I looked in the mirror and I was like, what is this body? Like, whose body is this? I don't recognize it. So please do not be afraid when you look at yourself for the very first time that you don't recognize yourself, because I definitely didn't recognize my body. I was like, what the hell is this? My stomach had deflated. I'll put a picture of what my stomach looked like as soon as I'd given birth, like I think about 12 hours after I'd given birth, and I just felt awful. I couldn't move. I had a 2nd-degree tear. I had 3 stitches. Walking was incredibly painful and I needed one of my nurses to help me to the bathroom. And while I was going to the bathroom, Noah was screaming, crying in the room where I was, and it was just awful. The first pee, I was so afraid and it was quite painful. I will say it kind of stung a bit. I had a peri bottle with me, which was so helpful. Do not fill it up with cold water. Fill it up with lukewarm water. I found lukewarm things anywhere near that area, or warm things, to help. I know that sounds crazy. A lot of people talking about like ice packs and stuff. They did not work for me. Anything cold going near that area kind of made the feelings a little bit more painful. So I used heat. I had a hot water bottle in between my legs. The only cool thing I used was a witch hazel spray, which actually was to help heal the area. But in general, I found heat on the area worked way better than cold. And my mum had said that. She was like, why are you getting those, you know, ice packs? They're just gonna you know, make the feeling worse. And I was like, no, they're not. They're supposed to like numb the area. No, I didn't like any of that. So dermaplast or any of those things would not have worked for me. Ice packs, horrible, hated it all. Something warming was more comforting on the area. But anyway, your body, you don't recognize it. You feel really strange in your core because your core muscles are completely and utterly like stretched. So your core is incredibly weak. Walking was very difficult. Every time I sneezed, it hurt. Everything just kind of felt like it had been shifted around in my whole body and it all been moved and pulled and dragged. So your body does feel completely and utterly alien, and that is normal. Like I said, I was proud of my body and the changes that occurred. Like my breasts had changed so much. I think they've gone through the biggest change. I had barely like a B cup and now I'm like a D. And they were way bigger than that. When my milk came in, they were huge and they were so painful. They're more painful for just a day. Like breastfeeding for me was not painful at all. I just found the engorgement painful. So first thing in the morning, it was so painful. I remember being like to Patty, give me the baby quickly. I need him to feed because I need to have a bit of letdown. I ended up getting a haka or a haka, which is great for your letdown. Just it ends up, you just produce the milk from one breast while the baby's feeding on the other, and it just helps with the letdown because the baby can't even attach when you're that engorged. So your body goes through a huge amount of changes. Your stomach still looks pregnant after you give birth. You look about 26, 28 weeks pregnant. I was 100% prepared for that. I brought in pregnancy bands to the hospital and I wore them for a couple of weeks afterwards. I found that they really helped in kind of supporting me. They're support bands. I'll leave a link to them down below. I got them on Amazon. They were really, 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 really great. They helped to kind of hold my core. The first walk I went for was on the Sunday after I came home, and like I said, I had them on Thursday. Patty brought me to the bottom of my road and back. I live in a cul-de-sac. It was probably the longest walk I've ever been on. It took me forever. There was still a lot of cellulite after I gave birth. I had loose skin on my belly, and this bouncing back thing, which I've talked about in a vlog, is just so bloody ridiculous because your body has been through a huge change. Obviously pregnancy changes your body more than any other change you'll ever go through. Like puberty, yeah, probably one of the first changes, but in pregnancy there is huge changes, things I was not prepared for, things I did not even think were going to happen. You have to give your body time, so do not be subject to this bouncing back. It's crazy, and I really feel like social media has a huge part to play in that, and don't be sucked in by it. A lot of it is Photoshop for starters, and some of it could be genetics. If it does happen that somebody, you know, does bounce back very quickly, do not compare yourself to anybody else. A lot of my friends have said it's taken a long time to get their body back, and they just took it in their stride and they took time to let it happen, and that's been super reassuring to me. To be honest, I'm not anywhere near like pre-pregnancy size. Get into my jeans, zip them up, but I can't close. So instead I went out and got a cheaper pair of jeans, the next size up, and they fit me great, and that's fine. Loose skin on my belly, that's kind of gone away now. I'm 8 weeks almost. It's kind of all tightened back up. I am doing light core exercises. I was given the sign off from my doctor at 6 weeks, and I've been just doing really light core exercises. I found a girl on TikTok, I'll link her down below. She does all mummy postpartum videos, all aimed at healing diatus recti, which is basically the separation of the abs. It happens to every single person. Some people have it worse than others during pregnancy, but it's basically where your abs are just so separated. Where they used to be like this, they're now separated, and it's just to kind of bring them back together, and you need to do light exercises. So I've been doing them for the last 5 days. I'm on day 5. She has like a 30-day, you know, healing of your core muscles, and it's been really helpful. I definitely didn't feel as confident postpartum as I did during pregnancy. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that you didn't like the look of your body after you've given birth. I know a lot of people will say, oh, you need to love your body and blah blah blah. You don't have to. You can be upset by the appearance of your body after giving birth. It's perfectly fine. I actually loved my body during pregnancy. I just hated how slow I was. I wish that I was able to like climb over walls and stuff like that when we went out for walks. We were finding like really fun trails to go on, and I couldn't do any of it because I was pregnant. That was kind of the biggest issue I had during pregnancy, was just my fitness level. But afterwards it was more the appearance of it. I just was sad to see that my body looked the way it looked. I was upset thinking that it just didn't look the way it looked before. But that went away after, I'd say, about 2 days, and then I was like, look, forget about it. Who cares? I just gave birth. Nobody's going to look at me and be like, oh my God, the state of her body. Nobody. It's just me. It's all inside. So instead I just worked on that, and I said, look, it grew this fantastic little baby and I love him so much, and just let it be what it is. The only thing I did did do and what I still recommend is eating well and doing a little bit of walking when you're able to, if you're able to. Like I said, I was barely able to go to the bottom of my road after I gave birth. It took a lot of time and energy to get my strength back up, and even standing would hurt. I couldn't sit for ages. I was sitting on one of those like little round pillows. I couldn't sit at my kitchen table. It was too hard to sit on the hard chairs. Give yourself time. I was putting pressure on myself to do things like being able to walk more and do those things. I just slowed down and instead just took it all in my stride. I did get a kidney infection straight after giving birth, which is not unheard of. I've had one kidney infection, I think, in my entire life. It's not uncommon for it to happen. It wasn't nice. It was horrible and it took all my energy out of me despite being exhausted. Anyway, fortunately those things do happen, and there's loads of other things that women get during pregnancy and giving birth that are normal, like hemorrhoids for instance. Hair loss is another one. Suffering from constipation is a huge one. I had to take stool softeners for the first few days so I could go to the toilet, and it took a long time. Actually, my first pee was more nerve-wracking than my first poo. I did want to mention about going to the toilet. It's going to take you a lot longer than it ever took you before, between pads and just the slowness of peeing. And then I was using one of the peri bottles, like I said, so I had to fill that up, and then the spray afterwards that I used, a witch hazel spray. It just did take a lot of time. It's a lot of an effort to go to the toilet, much more than it was ever before. But like I said, now 8 weeks postpartum, I think all that went away around week 2 and I was feeling a lot better. Fortunately for me, I didn't get any stretch marks during pregnancy, so I'm not really able to kind of discuss anything like that. But I know women get them on their breasts, their belly, their legs, their thighs. They get them on their bum, and that is completely and utterly normal. I didn't get anything. I've no secret because I used bio oils up until about week 14. Then I ran out of it and I just wasn't bothered purchasing it again. Instead I used moisturizers and I didn't get one stretch mark, so I think it's all down to genetics. I didn't get them on my breasts despite the fact that they were huge, and my bump was quite big as well. I just didn't get them. I'm not bragging, it's not a flex, it's just me being honest. If you get them, it's completely normal and it is wonderful. Again, your body is stretching to grow a baby, so it's completely normal, and people get them during puberty as well. I want to talk about mental health, so this kind of ties back into like the feelings and hormones that I talked about on my first point, but this is definitely something that I have been struggling with. Not every day, but some days. My mental health has definitely taken a little bit of a hit. That is to be expected. If you're going around like Mary Sunshine 24/7, I'd be kind of concerned about a person. So having like moments where I'm teary-eyed, upset, crying, just feeling low, that's all normal, and they are things that my mental health has gone through. So I've just tried to be a bit kinder to myself, stopped putting pressure on myself to do things like exercise or, you know, getting out for a run, even though I really want to do those things, but just slowing down, just taking in the fact that my body looks the way it looks, taking in the fact that some days are harder with Noah than others, taking in the fact that, you know, I am a mother, and being a mother is probably the most difficult job I've ever had. And I've worked 3 jobs and studied at the same time whilst doing dancing, by the way. So I have multitasked to the max, and I still find motherhood harder than any of those things. When I was doing 5 things, being a mother has definitely been the hardest thing. It is the most rewarding and loving thing, but it is so hard. You don't get a second to yourself. You really don't. You don't get time away from the baby, and when you are away from the baby, your mind is on the baby. And to try and train yourself not to be thinking about him 24/7 is probably harder, and then your mental health goes through like a dip because you feel like you're doing a bad job if he's having a bad day. So you need to be kind to yourself and accepting help when it's giving, taking time out for even a shower, getting sleep in where it's possible. When people say sleep when the baby sleeps, I just have to like roll my eyes at that, because sometimes he falls asleep in my arms when I'm standing in the kitchen at 3 o'clock in the day and I still have laundry to do. There's still bottles to be cleaned, there's a bed to be made, and then maybe I might do dinner that night. So it's just not possible. When he's sleeping, I try and do things like have a shower. Patty's working, my parents have their own life and they're doing their own thing. I only accept help when it's offered. I don't ask for it. If you do feel like your mental health has taken a plummeting and you do feel like you're struggling, I would say if you can, talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a professional like your doctor or a therapist. It can just be a friend that you have, a family member, whatever. Just do talk if you are struggling, because your mental health suffers, so is you know, your relationship with your baby. And if you do feel like your relationship is suffering with your baby, 100% speak to your doctor about that. My mental state towards food and my body size is something that I have to work on, and I 1,000,000% have baby brain. I forget things all the time. I put something down, I forget where I've put it. I couldn't have a human conversation up until about week 5 postpartum, and even still I'm struggling with those human conversations. I feel like everything is just like, what? Sorry? What did you say? Because I'm like daydreaming or half asleep. Very fortunate that I have an understanding bunch of people around me that just know that I am a bit slower some days. I do find Paddy amazing to talk to. Obviously, he's my best friend, and I tell him every single thing, and he talks to me, and he might just say one thing and it just reassures me. Like, he might just say, "You're doing a fantastic job. You're a wonderful mother, Ashling," and it just makes me feel so much better. Or, "Your body is beautiful." I am so lucky with Paddy. He tells me every single day how beautiful I am, how wonderful I am. He bought me flowers yesterday for absolutely no reason. He's just so wonderful. Paddy doing small things for me makes me feel better. It perks me up. Just kind of what I want to talk about. The next point is relationships. So your relationships definitely change. My relationship with my mum and Paddy's mum has changed. It's grown stronger, if anything, because I just admire them. Like, Paddy's mum had twins. My mum looked after my sister and I when my dad was working away. That must have been so hard for her and for Paddy's mum. And juggling work with babies is no joke. It's no laughing matter. And I just have so much respect for women in my life. My granny reared 6 children, and I don't know how she did it with her husband working in his own business full time. Like, if you work for yourself, you just never ever take a break. And I just have so much respect for the women in my life. Not that I didn't before, not that I didn't admire them before, but it's just become like tenfold since having Noah, and just seeing what a wonderful job every single mother does, and how single parents, single dads, single mums, how they do it. I just don't know, because without a bit of help I would really be struggling, because it is hard some days, like I said, and it's okay to say it's hard. But my relationships have grown stronger with those people. My relationship with Paddy has also changed. It's deepened. Like, I love him so much more, if it was even possible, than before. Not to be like cheesy, but I just love seeing him as a dad. I think he is an amazing father. He's so chilled, he's so easygoing, and he just takes it in a stride. He's a fantastic father. And again, my relationship with my dad and Paddy's dad has changed too, because I just feel so much closer to Paddy's dad. Particularly, I was always close to my dad. I love my dad so much, but I just feel closer to him as well, because he's so great with Noah too. My dad is absolutely wonderful with Noah, and I just think it's really nice seeing him with a little boy, because he had 2 daughters, and I just love the little bond he has with his grandson. So I will say that my relationships have gotten stronger and deeper with my loved ones. It's just great. And my sister and Paddy's family in general, like his aunts and uncles and stuff, are great. My aunts and uncles are fantastic. So it just, you get like a much stronger bond to the people around you. Well, I have personally. Again, this is all my personal experience. The one thing I will say about my relationship with Paddy that's changed, that I'm not always like happy about, but it's just that our conversations are more so, when was the last time Noah fed? Or does Noah need a nappy change? Or Noah's not settling, I'll bring him for a walk. And I just feel like our conversations are all about the baby, which is perfectly fine, but I do miss conversations just about ourselves and date nights and stuff. So last weekend, Paddy and I went away to Mayo, and my mum and dad took care of Noah for the weekend. It was the best thing that we ever did, and we're just back to the way we were before we ever had him, because I felt like that our conversations and us were like 2 ships passing in the night. We weren't like having conversations, and even like so much as hugging and kissing each other, we were kind of like not doing that as much. So I feel like we are back on track with that, and I'm so happy about it. Relationships change with people around you, and they can also make you aware of people who are not needed in your life anymore. It hasn't happened to me personally, but friends of mine have said such and such is not understanding of me having a baby and taking time out, and they have said that, you know, relationships with certain friends have broken down, and that is okay, because if your friends don't understand after you've had a baby, then they're not your friends to begin with, because all my friends have been fantastic. They're the most supportive bunch that I've ever come across, and some of them don't even have kids. A majority of my friends do have kids now, so they kind of are all on the same page. Our conversations have changed from, you know, what are we wearing out this weekend, and what pub are we going to, what club are we going to, you know, does your baby have a witching hour, and what size clothes are you buying for your baby, and conversations about C-sections, and you know, she had a natural birth and she's breastfeeding, and, you know, having weird conversations like that with your friends. But that is fine as well, because your relationships change all the time. You're not having the same conversations with your friends as you did when you were in school. Let's be real here. You've gone through a life-changing thing and you're now in a different stage of your life. And the last thing I just want to talk about is bleeding and also sex. I want to throw that into it as well. I thought that bleeding went on for about 6 weeks. It actually is only there for about 2 weeks for me, and then it tapered off and got lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. It was the heaviest, I'd say, for the first 2 to 3 days. I was experiencing a lot of bleeding, and that's completely normal. You just had a baby. Also, I wasn't aware that the placenta takes up the size of a dinner plate in your body. So there is a space or a hole in your uterus where the placenta was that no longer is there. Something the size of a dinner plate missing from your body, and a vital kind of organ, your uterus, is a huge reason why you need to take it slow and kind of relax, and don't be doing too much and lifting too much and trying to do exercise and stuff, and take your time. Postpartum bleeding was actually fine. It just felt like a period after about 3 weeks, and then that period, it was like day 1 of your period for about a week, and then it tapered off. For me, the postpartum bleeding completely and utterly went away at week 5, completely. No spotting, no nothing. Also, when you're breastfeeding, your uterus kind of contracts, which is strange, and it feels like cramps. I did get that cramping sensation. It's not anything bad. It's not like really painful. It's just like kind of period cramping, which I wasn't aware that would happen when you were breastfeeding. But yeah, you get a little bit of cramping, and it just helps with kind of making the womb go down. And I got my checkup at about 10 days after I gave birth, because I had the kidney infection, and my doctor checked to make sure that my uterus was going back into place and everything was fine. They do check you in the hospital as well, just to make sure, and that you've no clots or anything like that, because you could have part of the placenta still left. So it is kind of important to keep an eye on the bleeding yourself and kind of know what's going on. But it isn't bad, and you just need panty liners. I will say you go through a lot of them, and you can't use anything like tampons, but the chafing from the panty liners is just, it's kind of uncomfortable. Obviously, I knew I was going to be bleeding for that length of time, but I just didn't even consider that the fact that panty liners would irritate that area as well, and you have to change them every single time you go to the toilet just to avoid infection. But that's just normal hygiene things, you know yourself. The other thing is sex or anything going into that area. Like, that's why you're not allowed to use tampons or like moon cups or anything like that. And obviously sex, you need to be very careful. I will say, make sure you get signed off by your doctor. I got signed off my doctor at 6 weeks. The first time we were intimate together was a little bit uncomfortable, but if you just take it easy and go slow, if you have an understanding partner, that's fantastic. To be perfectly honest, it was more than enjoyable, and it did feel slightly different than before I had the baby, but not overly different, and it wasn't painful in any way, shape or form. Like, I thought it might be a little bit painful, but it wasn't. If you just go easy because you are a bit nervous, I think that's more so what it was. Paddy and I's relationship in that area is kind of like completely back to normal. Again, that's different for every single person. Some women don't want to have sex or be intimate for months after having a baby. Again, that's normal. You know your own body, and go with the flow of your own body. Don't feel pressure to do anything like that. Just take it easy. And that's the whole kind of thing I want to like stress after having a baby, is just take it easy. Go easy on yourself. It is easier said than done, but just try and relax and try and just take everything in your stride. You just gave birth. Take care of yourself first and foremost, because then you'll be able to take care of your baby. So whether that is just going to the toilet or having a shower, eating well and doing whatever your body needs. And also, if you feel like you need to go to a therapist, a physio, a doctor, need to see a nutritionist after you've given birth, go to those people. Go and get help if you need to, professionally, to look after whatever aspect of your life that you're struggling with, whether it be your body. Maybe go to the physiotherapist to try and help strengthen you up, or whatever it may be, and speak to someone professionally if you are struggling mentally. That is the one thing I will say. If you are struggling and you really can't cope and it's becoming overwhelming, speak to somebody. If you listen to nothing from today's video, let that be the only thing. Anyway, guys, I think that's kind of everything I've covered. Like I said, I want to do a whole thing all about like postpartum essentials for the bleeding, and also talking about things that you do need in your hospital bag, as well as my body update, which will be coming eventually. So thank you so much, guys, for taking the time out of your day to watch today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you in my next one. Mwah. Bye, guys.